I'm James Brierton in Charlotte, North Carolina. We are coming on the air right now across the Carolina Weather Group for live severe weather coverage. We have numerous storm warnings across the Carolinas from coast to coast. And most importantly, we are dealing with some storms that are producing considerable wind damage, considerable threats. And two of them right now are in metropolitan areas. Let's start with the one over Charlotte. This just came in from the National Weather Service here moments ago. It's about 4:10 now on August the 21st, 2026. And this is a severe thunderstorm warning that includes York, Mecklenburg, and Union counties. And it has literally just arrived right outside our Carolina Weather Group studios here. And I'm going to go ahead and try to get that on the screen for you. We have a camera outside. You may have saw me just turn and look outside as the winds were picking up here in southeast Mecklenburg County in Charlotte, not too far from Matthews. So again, this is for the Mecklenburg County area. Also includes portions of York and Union counties. That's Union County, North Carolina, and that would then be York County, South Carolina. A considerable severe thunderstorm is a storm that is producing 60-mile-per-hour winds or greater. And so this is more than your run-of-the-mill thunderstorm. This is a storm that could very well produce damage, and you might be able to make it out in the background. I am listening to the local police scanner here, and we're just getting a onslaught of downed trees across the area. So here's a live look right now outside our Carolina Weather Group studios here. Again, I'm not too far from Matthews, if you know where that is, just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. We're also really close to the Union County line. And I've got a tree branch out there that is just dancing in front of our rooftop camera. The rain is coming down real strong. The visibility is very low. And this is, again, just one of several storms right now that are moving throughout the Carolinas. I'll take you on radar across to all the other storms here in just a moment. But considering that this is happening right outside our window here, I wanted to start with this storm. Again, if you can kind of get a sense for the visibility, if you look just above those tree lines, you can't even see into the neighborhood just beyond ours here. So again, a considerable severe thunderstorm warning right now over the Mecklenburg County, the Union, North Carolina, and the York, South Carolina area. So the York does include down towards Fort Mill. The Mecklenburg County warning does go as far north as Interstate 85. They've actually you saw that live right here on the Carolina Weather Group, redrew that warning to take uptown Charlotte out of the warning. But we are still looking at Hickory Grove, Cotswold, South Park, Matthews, Ballantyne, Pineville, Mint Hill in Mecklenburg County, all still within that considerable warning right now. And then on the Union County side, we're just outside the city of Monroe. So Weddington, Wesley Chapel, Indian Trail, that's where we're seeing some of the strongest winds. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually flip this over to the terminal Doppler radar, which is located not too far from Charlotte Douglas International Airport. And one of its strengths is looking at winds. And so you can see that right on down here in the Union County area, we are currently picking up estimated winds of at least 50 miles an hour. Again, the threat for 70-mile-per-hour winds does exist across this area. This is the type of warning that you should head inside. Treat it kind of like a tornado warning. And while we're not expecting an actual tornado funnel, we are going to treat this like the threat of a tornado, meaning that we could see lots of downed trees and power lines. And that's why the National Weather Service went ahead and issued that considerable severe thunderstorm warning. A little while ago, just about the last 15, 20 minutes or so, we also watched as that same storm produced a likely microburst back over the Hickory Grove and the Cotswold area. And you can see that right here between Reedy Creek and Hickory Grove. This is about 4:13. This would be radar from about 5-10 minutes ago. And you can see we were easily getting 60, 56-mile-per-hour winds produced from this storm. Matter of fact, if I take the frames a few inches further into the future, it looks like we well exceeded that 60-mile-per-hour mark as part of this storm. And again, down here, what you saw on camera just moments ago from our studio was probably a good 40, 50-mile-per-hour winds associated with that storm as it rolled on through the area. We'll continue to keep a close eye on that. I want to show you some of the other storms that are happening because certainly that's not the only storm on the board right now. We do have warnings that extend associated with this line out towards the east. So southern Cabarrus County, again, more of Union now included in an updated warning. This does now include the city of Monroe as the National Weather Service continues to track this considerable threat of a severe thunderstorm as it moves on off to the east. I also want to mention that Indian Land and other communities there in the kind of the northern peninsula, the northern finger, if you will, of Lancaster County, you too are in this warning as this storm pushes through the Charlotte Metro I-77 area. You can see all the counties on your screen right now that are outlined in yellow. Those are where the severe thunderstorm watch is in effect. And we'll talk more about what the future holds once we get through talking about the present. I mentioned that there's another storm right now on radar that also holds that considerable threat, and that one's right here. And this is for portions of South Carolina just off to the west of Columbia. So it's Richland, Lexington, Newberry, Fairfield, and Saluda counties. Now, this storm has been considerable for at least the past 30 minutes or so as it continues to move on off to the east. Its threat again, 70-mile-per-hour winds. And you can see we do have a report of wind damage that occurred about 3:20. This comes into us from the South Carolina Highway Patrol, which reports a tree down in the roadway at State Park Road, again at about 3:20. We're going to get so many reports of down trees associated with these storms that I don't even know if it's going to be possible to bring them all to you. Certainly want to use caution right now if you're traveling in the vicinity of any of these storms. So let's look at the storm here again from velocity perspective. The radar is going to give us those wind estimates as they are occurring right now. So as we look at the storm just north of US 378, what we can begin to see from radar is that the winds are moving at least 50 miles an hour. And we're going to put this into motion, and you can see how strong this storm was when it was just to the east of Saluda, with winds of at least 60 miles an hour or so, probably likely much higher as I continue to kind of just search and quarry the pixels. You can see 65 miles per hour here. Negative just means it was moving away from the radar. That's kind of what gave the National Weather Service that confidence to go ahead and upgrade that warning to that considerable tier, that second tier of severe thunderstorm warnings. Really what I'm trying to tell you is if you see a considerable tag on a severe thunderstorm warning, it's even, it's not your run of the mill severe thunderstorm warning like you might just get on a typical summer day. It's even more because keep in mind, by the time you start getting to near 70-75 miles an hour, that's essentially the same wind strength as a category 1 hurricane. So these things can be mighty strong, and that's what some of these storms are able to do. Matter of fact, we had more severe wind just up here in the last 20 minutes or so up towards Prosperity. Again, as that approached I-26 corridor, it did weaken a little bit there, luckily, as it made its way a little bit closer to Little Mountain. But we'll be watching for storm reports with that storm as well, too. So those are kind of the two considerable tier severe thunderstorms that we have in place right now. Again, considerable tier is the second of 3 levels. Base level, considerable, and then destructive would be the top tier. Luckily, we haven't seen any of those right now. We do have another severe thunderstorm warning. This is for the threat of 60-mile-per-hour winds. So it's your base tier, but we should still give it the severity and the duty that it warrants. This is for Richland, Newberry, and Fairfield counties. And again, you can see some of those towns on the screen right now do include Winsboro, Ridgeland, Blythewood, but also that I-77 corridor here. So just north of the city of Columbia in South Carolina, we do have, again, a severe thunderstorm warning. Flashing on your screen right now, we're getting some new warnings that are coming in. This does kind of fill in other portions of Lancaster County in South Carolina with the severe thunderstorm warning that now goes another 42 minutes until the 5 o'clock hour. It also includes Kershaw and Fairfield counties for a threat of 60-mile-per-hour winds. And not to be left off, but there is a storm just adjacent to that does have its own polygon severe thunderstorm warning. That's for Chester County, South Carolina. They're divided into 2 polygons for technical reasons that aren't really important. What we really need to know is that we have severe storms capable of producing damaging wind all along that I-77 corridor, Richburg, Fort Lawn, Great Falls, again, down towards Winsboro and just north of the Columbia area. Right now, we're not getting a lot of rain in the Columbia area. We're getting some, but we are still seeing lightning. We can still see lightning, maybe 10 or plus miles away from a storm. And so if you hear thunder, you see lightning, please do head inside. Some of these storms are capable of producing a lot of lightning. You can see that down here in Aiken County, South Carolina. You'll notice that although the background of my map is yellow, there's no polygon on the screen. That's because lightning is not a criteria for a severe thunderstorm warning, but lightning itself can certainly be very deadly. And so, again, if you hear thunder, see lightning, please head inside. Again, that yellow background, that represents a severe thunderstorm watch that goes for another 4 hours and 41 minutes or so. So that's going to bring us to about the 8-9 o'clock o'clock hour here on this Friday night, the main threat is going to be those damaging winds. You can see the probability on your screen of at least a 50% chance of seeing 60-mile-per-hour winds in this area. And that area does include portions of North Carolina, including Charlotte, Fayetteville, just shy of Raleigh, as far off to the east as Jacksonville and Wilmington, and then into South Carolina. That severe thunderstorm watch just outside of Greenville, South Carolina, but does extend south towards Augusta, Orangeburg, Columbia, Sumter, Florence, Myrtle Beach. Charleston, you're not in the warning, the watch as of right now. We'll watch to see if anything changes as we go on through there. And we can already see lots of storms that are verifying inside this watch area, which is also kind of encompassed inside a mesoscale discussion outlined there in red that shows us exactly where the National Weather Service is kind of targeting things as we go through this threat today that includes North Carolina, South Carolina, and portions of Georgia. 60 to 70 mile per hour winds up to 1 inch and a quarter size hail, 1.25 inch hail. We'll be watching for that as well too. Luckily, the tornado threat is pretty low, but because we're watching for these storms to produce such destructive winds, it's going to almost look like tornado damage in certain areas. We get into this all the time. People try to say, "Oh, I got there was a tornado." Tornadoes are just wind; they just rotate. Thunderstorms can also produce wind in the form of like a wall that might be coming at you. They're going to produce very similar damage as we've seen across South Carolina. We'll get to some of those damage reports in a moment, but I want to stay live right now, continuing to track the latest warnings as they come into us here at the Carolina Weather Group, because this one just popped up on the board for Chesterfield County, South Carolina. 60-mile-per-hour winds, 1-inch size hail. This goes again until 5 o'clock here, and this is a more discrete cell. So while we're seeing kind of clusters and lines of storms here and there, we also are watching for some of these very discrete cells. I'm not sure if you're able to hear that thunder in the background as the storm continues to move through Mecklenburg County and the city of Charlotte here, where I'm broadcasting from on this Friday afternoon with you. Lots of damage reports from earlier storms out across the greater Fayetteville area in North Carolina, with continued heavy rains right now in the U.S. I-74 corridor, as well as the I-95 corridor there in Pembroke and Lumberton. And we're also looking at heavy storms with intense amounts of lightning right now near Whiteville, where we did get some reports of wind damage. You can see here, public reported a grain bin blew into the trees and a barn flattened by the storm at about 2:20 this afternoon. That is the strength of some of these storms. They're literally flattening buildings, especially some of these maybe weaker farm buildings. Numerous trees and power lines also reported down in this area near Hallsborough. Approximately 15 trees. Some individuals were trapped inside of cars that were then impacted by those falling trees and power lines. So you can see just how impactful some of these storms are as they continue to move through the area. Not to be left out, we are watching a few special marine warnings off of Morehead City, off of Ocracoke. Those are essentially severe thunderstorm warnings for the water. They're going to impact mostly folks who are out in boats. But again, this is an area where the difference between water and land is pretty minute in some places, especially in Morehead City, where you can see there's a thunderstorm right now kind of right over the population density there along NC-12. And so we should treat it just like a severe thunderstorm warning as we continue to watch the storm that is producing damaging wind and possibly water spouts, especially in that offshore area. Ocracoke's kind of the same idea. There's actually an observed waterspout confirmed with the storm right now out towards Ocracoke. So that would be Carteret and Hyde counties in extreme eastern North Carolina there on the coast. The special marine warning goes for another 22 minutes, so about 4:45 on this Friday. And that's, again, essentially a severe thunderstorm warning that is mostly over the water. But we do have NC-12. We have Ocracoke in that area. So do keep a very close eye on that storm if you're in that area. The Raleigh area right now, we're not seeing the same intensity of storms at the moment, but just east of there and just east of I-95 down towards Williamston, Greenville, North Carolina, you can see we do have thunderstorms that, again, are going to impact your evening, especially if you're maybe heading home from work or heading out to an after-school activity or so. So that's kind of a look right now at all of the warnings that are on the board, and we'll continue to watch for more of those to come in. I know I owe you an update on all of the damage reports that are on the screen there right now, but the National Weather Service is telling us that they've just dropped the considerable tag back from 70 to 60 miles per hour for that that storm over Mecklenburg County. They also removed York County as that storm continues to move off to the east and has kind of cleared the York County, the Fort Mill, the Rock Hill area. But we are getting lots of reports of tree down. You might be able to hear my police fire scanner here in the background listening right now very closely to Mecklenburg County. We're getting reports of trees and wires down all across the area. I'll try to bring you some of those in just a moment. The folks at York County Emergency Management are also telling us they've got trees and power lines down on Old Nation and Walker Street and Fort Mill, trees down on Old Nation and Rich Street, power lines down on the 200 block of Maple Street as the storm there kind of came ripping through the area within the last 20 minutes or so. What we'll be able to do momentarily is I can kind of pull up the Duke Energy, we can pull some traffic cameras, we can begin to get an idea of where some of these impacts will be. Obviously, luckily, right now, my power is still on, not too far from the Matthews area, but we're watching very intense rain right now that is moving through Weddington and Wesley Chapel with lightning continuing, and also the velocity on radar is. Hang on. I heard the police scanner say something about a structure not too far from here, and I didn't catch exactly what the impact to that structure was. Okay, there's a working structure fire. That's what the Charlotte Fire Department right now is beginning to head on out to, possibly from lightning or other impacts from the storm. What I want to do right now up here in the Mecklenburg County area, the greater Charlotte area, is I want to switch on over to the terminal Doppler radar because the winds over the city of Monroe right now are catching my eye. You'll remember that the storm, as it rolled through portions of Mecklenburg County, other portions of Union County and York County, had the considerable tag for the threat of up to 60 mile per hour, 70 mile per hour winds. We're continuing to see right now about 60, 63 mile per hour winds as the storm kind of encroaches on downtown Monroe. Even up here on the I-74 corridor, we're still seeing about 50 mile per hour winds associated with this storm as it moves on off to the east. Sounds like there's a tree down on a house here someplace in Mecklenburg County. The fire department very busy right now, especially it sounds like over the South Charlotte area. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull up the Duke Energy power outage map, get an idea of where some of the clusters of power outages are. We have 25,000 outages right now in the greater Charlotte area. A huge cluster of those right now south of Uptown Charlotte. This is going to be over kind of the Park Road area, Pineville Matthews, Providence Road area. We're just going to essentially have to tally up the amount of power outages in Mecklenburg County because, as you can see, there are thousands of Duke Energy customers right now without power across Mecklenburg County, but also back over here towards Mint Hill and up just north of there towards Oak Forest. That's where we saw, if you were with me a little bit earlier, that microburst that seemed to be happening, or the macro burst that seemed to be happening there on the east side of Charlotte over towards Mint Hill there in eastern Mecklenburg County. And that is essentially when a thunderstorm just collapses and it sends out winds, very strong, severe winds in all directions, can easily take down power lines and trees. And that seems to be what I'm seeing correlated between the radar and the Duke Energy power map right now. I'm pretty sure I can switch this over to county mode, and that will just show us real fast that all across the county, Duke Energy is dealing with 150 active outages, nearly 9,000 customers without power. It's kind of a relatively small number of people, and when you look at the 500,000 customers they serve, but you also have to remember that a customer from their standpoint, that's one address. So if there's a family of 4 in a house, they're going to show up as one customer. So nearly 9,000 addresses without power right now in Mecklenburg County, and they're not alone. Duke Energy is also going to be having to deal with repairs in other counties, including Chester County, South Carolina, where you can see a much larger fraction of their customers are without power there, nearly 3,000 of the 15,000 that they serve. There are certainly other power companies out there, not to say that Duke is exclusive, but they are kind of the biggest of the companies across the Carolinas. A lot of us either get energy directly from Duke, or maybe you get it through a third party that in turn gets it from Duke. We also, as I mentioned, there's the Chester County outages, which seem to kind of really be clustered kind of in and around the actual downtown city of Chester County. You can see how that emanates out there in multiple directions. And we also did mention, of course, that we had all those wind damage reports kind of south of Fayetteville along that I-95, I-74 corridor. And you can see how that kind of equates into the number of Duke Energy customers without power right now, stretching again into the thousands. Can I get a general overview? I can. So they have nearly 20,000 customers without power right now across the Carolinas. And the storms, well, they're still coming. If you take a look again at our live radar right now, powered by Weatherfront, you can get an idea of how much power these storms still have as they move across the region. This severe thunderstorm watch will go for several more hours. You can see several of these storms right now continue to have severe thunderstorm polygons on them. And let's talk a little bit about what some of these damage reports are. So, starting in the greater Augusta area, and I'll even check out these over here in the Georgia side of things, we did get wind damage reports. Columbia County Dispatch reports a tree down in a roadway near the intersection of Ray Owens Road and Bennett Road. We also had this one just north of Appling. And this is, I think that's the one I just clicked on. Let's get the other one. Columbia County Dispatch reports a power line down near the intersection of Cobham Road and Craw Place Road. That came in just shy of the 3 o'clock hour. Making our way back into the Carolinas along the I-20 corridor there in Aiken County, Highway Patrol reports a tree down on I-20. This, again, estimated to be about 2:30 in the afternoon. These storms have been going now for over 2 hours across the Carolinas. Elsewhere in Aiken County, the Center Fire Department reports that 2 trees fell across the roadway there on Snipes Pond Road and Thorn Apple Street, bringing down power lines and closing the road in the area. So one of those numerous areas where power crews are going to have to work to restore power. Making our way up here towards the US 378 corridor, right here on the state line, just outside McCormick. The McCormick County Dispatch reports several trees down in the Savannah Lakes community. That came in at about 2:30 this afternoon, again, where some of the storms had fired up a little bit earlier in the day. It's currently 4:30. The McCormick County Dispatcher also reports trees down along Highway 378 and Christian Road in that same approximate 2:30 time frame. Closer to Saluda, we had a storm that did produce additional wind damage, according to the South Carolina State Highway Patrol. Trees down in the old Charleston Highway area at about 3:15 this afternoon. We were watching as this storm, the thunderstorm, continued off to the east towards the city of Columbia. It had that considerable tag for the threat of nearly 70-mile-per-hour winds, and that's probably what we saw here, where the state Highway Patrol reports a tree down on State Park Road at about the 3:20 timeframe. We are happy to report that that storm, which was seen on radar for quite some time, and I can actually play it back, and you can see where it had some of that intense velocity and intense strength as it came across Saluda and continued off to the east. It kind of moved to the north, kind of fell apart and spread out. The good news there is that that considerable severe thunderstorm threat has diminished and did not continue off to the east towards the city of Columbia, where on a Friday at 4:30, 5 o'clock, you're going to have lots of people out on the roads. We are still certainly looking at a wet, impactful commute across the Columbia area, but it is probably less impactful if it had been a considerable thunderstorm. That certainly would have been a problem. Let's continue on looking at some of the other storm threats that are coming in. This one in Fairfield County at about 4 o'clock, just about the time we started our stream here on this Friday from the Carolina Weather Group. Fairfield County Dispatch reports a tree down on Highway 200 near Old River Road, associated with a storm that is now just off to the east and crossing Interstate 77. Still waiting to see exactly what storm reports we're maybe going to get in from the Mecklenburg County, York County, Lancaster, Union County, North Carolina areas associated with a storm that does continue to produce a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust as it continues to move mostly out of Mecklenburg County and into Union County right now, but it no longer carries that considerable threat. The wind threat is clocked to be at about 60 miles an hour, not 70. That is relatively good news, but of course 60 mile per hour is still enough to produce damage like we've seen elsewhere across the area today and on plenty of other other days. But it does seem right now that that cell that was coming through South Charlotte has kind of been isolated down to just this one polygon, which does still include portions of eastern Mecklenburg, southern Cabarrus, and northern portions and central portions of Union County, North Carolina. So you're making your way down Independence, US 74, US 74 bypassed. We're looking at those intense rains right now. Indian Trail, Wesley Chapel, down towards the city of Monroe, even further north there in Midland along 601 and 24, associated with that pretty strong storm. Now, just off to the east of there, it gets a little bit more rural, but we watched first as a single cell tried to get going over Chesterfield, South Carolina, and it seems to have achieved its goal there. We're still looking at a severe thunderstorm warning for the next 26 minutes, so that'll take us to 5 o'clock for a threat of 60-mile-per-hour winds and 1-inch size hail. But now joining it just to the north on the North Carolina side of things, in Scotland, Anson, Marlborough, and Richmond counties, we're watching additional storms that are considered to be severe, again, with that 60-mile-per-hour, 1-inch size hail threat. And this is not the first storm. We had a pretty massive storm to kind of kick things off really earlier in the day over portions of Richland County and Hamlet much earlier in the day. So this is kind of a rinse and repeat for these folks. And that's why we're also going to have to watch for flood threats in some of these places that are seeing repeated rains over and over and over again. That could certainly produce a flood threat. We saw it on the Duke Energy Power Map. We can see here again on Weatherfront, lots of wind reports kind of across, I'm going to say, the greater Fayetteville area on the south side out towards Clinton. Let's just click on some of these and let's start in Rayford here. Report of a tree down on Mockingbird Hill Road came in at about the 2 o'clock hour. Just south of there, another reported tree on Old Maxton Road. Then this catches my eye because we got like 4 or 5 different reports here just outside of I-295 in the Rockfish area. And so we've got reports of power lines down on Rockfish Road near Sandy Bottom Road. We're also looking right now at reported trees down on Stony Point Road, blocking at least one lane of traffic there. And again, that just outside the 295 corridor. 2 other reports really clustered close together. One is a tree down on a home on Briar Hill Road, and the other is a report of trees and power lines down on Myra Road. Again, this is kind of in the Rockfish community just outside of Fayetteville, just outside of Hope Mills. Continuing on, because certainly there's a plethora of these damaged wind reports that the National Weather Service has been able to confirm. Trees down on Butler Nursery Road. We also have reports right now of several trees down and 210. The road is 210, flooded and impassable. The 911 center there reported trees down other portions of the county in and around the Tar Heel area. And certainly there seems to be no shortage of those. That's the Weather Service saying that one dot probably represents numerous trees. Tree down on Broadwater Bridge Road near North Carolina State Route 210. That occurred at about the 3 o'clock hour. And then we also have a report of a tree down on North Carolina Highway 242, again near North Carolina 210. Closer to Roseboro, trees down on Salemburg Highway near Roseboro. 2 other reports reported tree down in the general vicinity. So again, this was about 340 here, about 310, 340 trees down. And if I were to roll the radar back, you can see just how impactful that storm was. And likely what I'm seeing here also on reflectivity is it kind of looks like the storm kind of fused together with numerous other storms. So we probably were dealing with outflows, winds, and such associated with these storms that were kind of converging. It almost looks like it's got a tiny little rotation there, not of a tornadic sense, but almost like a low pressure kind of low spinning there. If I slide this over, it was just next to my head. You can kind of see how that's rotating very broadly across the region. And then again, we had a storm report in the Clinton area of trees reported down numerous places across the city of Clinton. So lots of power outages, lots of trees down there. This is Hallsboro, just off of the US 74-76, where they run combined, the Andrew Jackson Highway there. Numerous trees reported down across the area, 15 or so trees at the very least. And then another report of more trees, and that is, again, the barn flattened that I told you about a little bit earlier. So that is at least all of the damage reports. I think I missed this one. Not to be left out. Not to be left out. What's our nearest town marker here? Trees down West Shortcut Road, and Jones Road. This is, I'm not sure what the nearest town would be. feel free to leave it in the comments if you know, but it is off of I-95, some distance south of Florence there in South Carolina. So certainly a lot happening. If you're just joining me now at 4:38, I'm James Brierton from Charlotte, North Carolina, where luckily the power does remain on here at CWGHQ because we're watching numerous severe thunderstorms producing wind damage across the Carolinas today. All of the area outlined in yellow right now, that is the severe thunderstorm watch that goes until about 9 o'clock tonight for storms exactly like you're seeing on the screen right now as the radar is updating here on Weatherfront. You can see we're dealing with about a 60-mile-per-hour wind threat. The threat of that is about 50%. You'll notice the tornado threat relatively low, the hail threat relatively low, but it's that wind threat. 60-mile-per-hour winds, 50% chance. 75%, 75-mile-per-hour winds is about 20%. Weather Service is telling us right now they're going to be updating this polygon here to completely remove Mecklenburg County from this storm that at one point was considered to be considerable, a tier 2 out of 3 on the severe thunderstorm kind of scale, if you will. So right now, just Union and Cabarrus for the next 20 minutes, the 60-mile-per-hour wind threat. I'm going to read some of your comments. I'm going to take a drink of some water. Birdie says, please hit the like button. Thanks, Birdie. Appreciate that. Comment here from Modest. This thing is going all the way around Lexington County. As much of the region right now is seeing storms, there are still lots of places that aren't seeing storms. And it certainly probably does feel like the storms are sporadically going around you. Charlotte Fire Department sounds right now like they're reporting to going to a report of floodwaters inside a structure someplace. I'm continuing to listen to the local scanner here where I am in Southeast Charlotte. Regala Drive continues to have a working structure fire. Regala Drive. I don't know where that is or how to spell that. Okay. That looks to be in the Ballantyne community. Working structure fire here, South Charlotte, Ballantyne, just off of 521, not too far from the South Carolina border. Okay, more of your comments here. Good Lord, says Modest. Yeah, I agree. We have a viewer who goes by the name NYC Urbanista checking in from Landrum, South Carolina here on YouTube. Crazy storms here last night. Curious if tonight will produce more of the same. We can take a look at the futurecast in just a moment. I'll tell you, we had storms roll through Charlotte where I am. And part of me was like, oh, okay, maybe we used up all the fuel. Nope. No, we didn't. We did not use up all the storm fuel. Curiously. Concord is peaceful. Rolling storms. The thunder is beautiful. Comment came in a little while ago. And yeah, you have some thunder right now around the Concord area. Comment from Gal Charlotte. Creating unnecessary panic and chaos in York and Lancaster counties. I wasted my time securing all the hanging plants and outside plants. I can't argue with your experience if that was your experience. I'm in Matthews in South Charlotte, and I'm definitely curious to see what blew away down the street before. If you didn't get 60 to 7-mile-per-hour winds, I would consider yourself lucky. We had a comment saying that we're under a tornado warning. That is not the case, I don't think. I don't see any tornado warning. Oh, wait. I stand corrected. We are under a tornado warning, and that is certainly the case. So this is a tornado warning. I got to tell you, I'm going to have to update my color table because that red just disappeared into the red of the other line that runs right through there. So thank you for pointing this out. I can't do anything but admit that you in chat pointed that out to me. Appreciate it. We have a tornado warning that goes for New Hanover and Pender counties in North Carolina. This goes for another 18 minutes, so that'll take us to the 5 o'clock hour. Let's go ahead and switch on over to the nearest radar, and we will switch it over to velocity, and we can kind of see where the green and the red were coming real close together here, just to the east of Wilmington, just south of Kings Grant. And then kind of continuing off to the north and to the east along US 17. We're kind of watching again near Ogden right now, where the winds are real close together here. So, what I mean by that is when we look at green, those are the winds moving away from the radar, and red is further away. And so you can kind of see the negative and the positive there pretty close together. So, that's the possibility that we are seeing a possible circulation there. Kind of especially in these areas where the cells come really close together, all right? So 20 miles an hour in one direction, 20 miles an hour in another direction. That is potentially where the tornado could be if there was a tornado. That is to say, we don't have any confirmation right now that there is a tornado on the ground, but certainly we want to tell you if you live in these areas, which does go all the way up to Murraysville and Hempstead, to go ahead and seek shelter inside a sturdy building. So that is the lowest level, furthest away from windows and doors. If you've got time, meaning if you're a little bit further downstream, right now we've got this possible tornado just outside of Kings Grant near Ogden, and it's going to be coming down into the Bayshore area here shortly. But if you're near Hampstead or even Topsail Beach, and you're in maybe like a beach structure, like a beach shack or kind of a less sturdy structure, it may be worth relocating if you can do so quickly and safely ahead of this potential tornado, which again, the warning goes for another 16 minutes or so as it continues to move off to the north and to the east. Also, probably worth noting in this area, we do have a flash flood warning, and that goes for another almost 4 hours, just associated with the repeated rains that continue to fall across the area. So, New Hanover County has this flash flood warning that includes portions of Wilmington, Wrightsboro, and Murraysville. Again, just because of the intense amount of rain that has been kind of moving through this area. And we can continue to see clearly that is still raining right now. And so that's why the National Weather Service does have that flash flood warning in effect, so that you can get yourself to higher ground if you certainly need to do so. When it comes to severe thunderstorms or tornadoes, we want to hide, we want to seek shelter, we want to batten down the hatches where we are. But a lot of times, when it comes to a flooding threat, you want to go ahead and move yourself to higher ground. You actually want to flee water and hide from wind. So, again, in New Hanover County, the flash flood warning is again for areas where there is small creeks, streams, urban areas, highways, streets, and underpasses, as well as other areas with poor drainage and low areas. Includes Interstate 40 near mile marker 146, Interstate 140 near mile marker 20, where we're continuing to see repeated rains. Still getting some thunder here where I am in Charlotte, certainly. All right. So we'll keep an eye on that. We do have another flash flood warning. That is for Columbus County in North Carolina for another 90 minutes or so. That does also include a Whiteville area where we've had repeated severe thunderstorm warnings and reports of tree damage. National Weather Service has done some updates since we were last in this area on the storms that are moving out of the Charlotte metro and off to the east. And you can see that the new giant polygon here. Um, are you going to give me counties, or are you just going to expect me to know the counties? It just says North Carolina. I'm gonna need to know all of the counties. I know at least some of the counties, and that's going to be like Anson and Stanley and Cabarrus, and I don't think we're quite in Rowan yet. But let's see exactly all of the counties that are inside of this warning. That looks like Moore, Davidson, Anson, Montgomery, Randolph, and Stanley counties. That warning goes until 5:45 with the storm that is over Albemarle, moving east at 25. 60-mile-per-hour winds is, of course, the threat. This does include portions of I-73. We have kind of filled in back here. We've taken Mecklenburg County out of the warning, but you can still see that portions of Union County, and this is going to be, are we still in Cabarrus? Yeah, Cabarrus, Union, and this is also Union. This whole area is essentially just one big warning. Yes, it's in multiple polygons, but I mean, all you really need to know is that essentially from the city of Monroe almost to Asheboro, we've got one cluster of storms. And then we got another cluster of storms just off to the south there. So when you put the radar into motion, you can kind of see that they're generally moving off to the east. But we do kind of have two clusters, right? So we got this first cluster here, and then we got the second cluster here. It'll be curious to see if they interact with each other and what that exactly does. Matter of fact, can we see on velocity at all if there are any outflow boundaries associated with this? Like maybe this area here, if the storms kind of are pushing winds out, my camera didn't like that. It's possible that we could see some interaction and new storms form if those storms started kind of pushing off towards each other. And that's not to say that they will, but it seems likely that they might. Let's see if Charlotte Fire has released any images from that working structure fire they're at. They tend to pretty frequently do that. So it was in fact a lightning strike. So Regala Drive, about 20 minutes ago, Charlotte Fire Department out to a structure fire. Within the last 5 minutes, they did get it under control. No reported injuries, but they did determine it was caused by a lightning strike to the building. I don't think they spelled lightning right, but I'll let it go. So I can hear on the scanner that they're continuing to evaluate. Let's update with Duke Energy. Gives us a real good idea of where the power outages are, and this number has gone up. When we last looked at the number across the greater Charlotte area, it was like 20 something, but now it's a little bit higher than that. Matter of fact, if I kind of just ask it for an overview of the whole county region, 23,000 customers without power. And again, a Duke Energy customer is just going to be one address. So if it's a family of 4, it's going to show up as one customer, not necessarily going to show up as 4 customers. Excuse me. A lot of this is kind of centered on South Charlotte, not terribly far from where I am. So I'm glad my lights are still on. I'm glad my air conditioning is still on. But you can see numerous power outages, essentially from South Park South through Ballantyne and Raintree, Arboretum Shopping Center. And then we have other clusters of power outages right now in East Charlotte, even towards Mint Hill, so eastern Mecklenburg County, up towards the 485 perimeter here. Both of these likely associated with microbursts or those considerable winds of 60 to 70 miles an hour from that storm. Zooming on out, we can see other clusters of power outages right now. Again, as we've told you a couple times, out towards Lumberton, south of Fayetteville. And we're continuing to track storms that are producing flash flooding, wind damage, and possible tornadoes out towards Wilmington, where they have at least 1,000 Duke Energy customers right now without power. So we do still have that tornado warning. We have a wall cloud reported just 2 minutes ago from storm chaser Mike Rosen, perhaps, rotating wall cloud. Just off to his northeast. So he's out towards Wrightsville Beach. And if he's looking northeast, would, of course, be kind of up in this direction, maybe perhaps more up in this direction. And we can switch over to the nearest radar here. Yeah, so he's looking at a wall cloud associated with this severe storm, probably up here again in the Ogden Bayshore area. I'm going to check in with the National Weather Service there in Wilmington and see what it is that they're telling us. Wilmington. Nothing additional to tell us other than the fact that this tornado warning goes until 5 o'clock. It's radar indicated. Meaning it's the rotation picked up by the radar that has prompted that warning, other than the storm chaser, not necessarily any indication of anything touching the ground or causing additional damage, but it's still pretty early to tell, so we certainly want to keep everyone on alert in that area. Let's check the chat here, because you guys have been super helpful so far today. Prayers from Wilmington. They created info panic for a lot of us. I'm not sure what info panic means, but I know you've submitted at least two comments now about uh, unnecessary panic, if that is your word for it. Yeah, so tornado warning and multiple water spouts. Yeah, so we saw a water spout that was confirmed out towards Ocracoke. That's Carteret and Hyde counties. The one towards Morehead City still has a water spout possible. But same idea. We're watching for possible rotation within these cells. And looks like that possible water spout was maybe right on here on the south side within the last 20 to 30 minutes near Ocracoke. Now, these are not the first water spouts we've seen today. These storms have been firing off across the area. And we got this from Gary near Buxton and Avon. This was a water spout that he posted to Facebook about 6:30 this morning. I mean, take a look at this, guys. Just like the comment from Brandon on YouTube says, the possible tornado warnings and multiple water spouts associated with these severe storms moving across the area. As Gary posted to Facebook, this was near Buxton in eastern North Carolina this morning. From afar, it would be hard to know whether that was a tornado on land or a water spout out over the water, but certainly something that you would want to take very similar precautions for. Stay out of its path. Certainly, if you were on the water, get out of the area. And again, if you were on land, treat these just like you would a tornado. Seek a sturdy shelter inside a building that you can kind of get to the lowest level away from windows and doors. Because the wind can certainly cause damage, and in this case, rough surf associated with a water spout like the one that Gary saw earlier today near Buxton, North Carolina. We appreciate him sharing that with our Sam Walker out there in the Outer Banks, so that we could bring that to you here on the Carolina Weather Group as part of continuing storm coverage on this Friday. Continuing to listen in the background to the Charlotte Fire Department scanner reporting numerous trees and power lines down across the area, especially here in South Charlotte. This comment from Mary watching from Duplin County saying that the lightning is crazy. Certainly is. We can see here on Weatherfront just how much lightning these storms are producing. Lightning is not a criteria for a severe thunderstorm warning. You can get an infinite amount of lightning and not necessarily get a warning for it. The National Weather Service will issue a warning when they have 60-mile-per-hour winds or 1-inch size hail, but lightning can still cause injuries, can still cause deaths. So certainly if you hear thunder, see lightning, do head inside. I like this comment. I'm not sure where this person was watching from, other than they're watching us here on YouTube. My dad is putting the animals inside. So, yeah, that's a really good thought. If you have outside animals, they're not going to like this. And the storms could certainly be a threat to them as they moved through the area, especially with the potential for damaging winds. Got this comment here from Danger Timed for the tornado warning outside of the Wilmington area, which again does go until about 5 o'clock, so another about 4 minutes or so. We'll wait to see if the National Weather Service extends this tornado warning for New Hanover and Pender County. Says, we don't think we have a tornado, but it is ominous looking. I'm in Wilmington near Ogden, about 5 minutes. So that's the exact area where we were tracking that possible tornado. Again, we want everybody to take precautions as if there is a tornado on the ground. The tornado warning means the National Weather Service can see potential rotation in the storm. As that comment mentions, we don't necessarily know whether or not there's a tornado on the ground. We don't typically know if there's a tornado on the ground until after the fact. So that's, if you're trying to decide whether or not to get to your storm safe place, go ahead and do it. Better to err on the side of caution. I'm near the university, says Beehive on YouTube. Got the alert on my phone. Was hoping to see a live radar. Beehive, thanks for watching with us. Not sure which of the universities you're near, but glad that you joined us here in the Carolina Weather Group after getting that alert from your phone. It's also a really good time to mention if you're watching me right now on YouTube, we do have a 24/7 radar. I'm on it right now, but if you check out our Carolina Weather Net, anytime that one of us from the Carolina Weather Group is not sitting here, a live human isn't sitting here, we do have the 24/7 live Carolina Weather Net, sky cams, real-time alerts from the National Weather Service, and radar. So hopefully I'm showing you everything you want to see on radar right now, but if for some reason I wasn't sitting here, we would still have you covered around the clock any place that it is that you watch YouTube. Still getting some comments right now from the Wilmington area where it is raining very hard. Some discussion of whether or not there's a tornado out in the distance. We don't have any confirmation that the tornado is on the ground, but we do still have an active warning for another 2 minutes or so. So we'll wait to see if the National Weather Service extends that. It's hard to know here. Browsing the comments. Wow, you guys got real chatty in the last couple of minutes. Oh, so Beehive is near University of North Carolina, Wilmington. As I continue to read the comments, that came in from Beehive a little bit later. So looking for the radar there, I take it, of the tornado warning. Yeah, I agree. Danger, I agree with this comment, right? For about 15 minutes, there was a lot of rotation there on radar. Nothing for certain. You're no meteorologist, but you've come to find out exactly what's going on. And again, we're going to treat it as if there's a tornado warning on the ground until we hear otherwise. All right. We are in touch with the National Weather Service in Wilmington. We're also in touch with local emergency officials. And so what I can tell you right now is that we don't necessarily know if there was a tornado on the ground. We had a rotating wall cloud, and that's what Mike reported to us here. That report of the rotating wall cloud at about 4:49. So what's the difference? So like, what is a rotating wall cloud? What's a tornado? Technically, for a tornado, your funnel cloud, which comes out of the cloud and goes down to the ground. If it touches the ground, that would be a tornado. And if that funnel cloud kind of just comes down and it's anywhere short of the ground, it's just considered a funnel cloud. It's not technically a tornado until it touches the ground. Rotating wall cloud is kind of part of that assembly line of the storm. And so what Mike is telling us is like, yeah, the storm is in fact rotating somewhere near the ground where I can see it. It's not on the ground, it's up in the sky, which is similar to what the radar is seeing, right? The radar is scanning for the rain and the wind and all those particles in the atmosphere. And so it's really good for the National Weather Service and for all of us to know that what they're seeing on radar in terms of rotation is kind of verifying in some reality. Again, we don't know yet whether or not anything actually touched the ground. But the good news is the National Weather Service has allowed the tornado warning outside of Wilmington to expire. It's gone. It's off the board. And the reason they did that is because if we switch on over to velocity, you can kind of see how this storm has transformed a little bit over the course of the last 30 minutes or so. So we're watching where the red and the greens kind of come together in close proximity here on Weatherfront. And as it moves away from Wilmington and up towards Ogden, you'll continue to see where we have some pretty bright red and pretty bright green close together. And that's pretty much where Mike was saying he was seeing that rotating wall cloud. But now the storm threat kind of, it looks a little bit different. Like that could potentially still be some broad rotation, but it's a little bit more spread out. And the other thing we'll watch for, and I only have one frame here where I go from this to this. And on this very last frame down towards Bayshore, I'm seeing 28 miles per hour. And then I'm seeing about 20 miles an hour. Yeah. And so I'm still seeing kind of rotation, but we'll watch to see. It might actually be more of a downburst situation, which we're seeing with a lot of our thunderstorms today. We're getting damage that might look and feel like a tornado because it's knocking down trees and power lines. But a lot of times thunderstorms can actually cause wind damage over a much larger area than a tornado because the way they're able to blow those winds out. But there are areas here that I think are still worth watching. Where there are some very broad rotation there in the clouds just outside of Wilmington, a part of those storms as they continue to move through the area. Switching us back over to radar. It's now just after 5 o'clock. I'm James Brierton, Charlotte, North Carolina. You're watching live storm coverage here from the Carolina Weather Group on this Friday, August the 21st. 2026. We are in what the National Weather Service's Storm Prediction Center considers to be a slight risk, tier 2 out of 5, for storms today. And most of those storms are going to come in the form of thunderstorms with damaging wind of at least 60, if not maybe 70 miles an hour. And that's certainly what we're seeing already playing out. A couple regions where we know we've seen storm damage today outside the greater Fayetteville area, all of those blue circles there represent storm damage. We also were watching a storm that came out of Georgia just north of the Augusta area. And as it moved towards Columbia, it was what the National Weather Service considers to be a considerable threat, a tier 2 out of 3. So that means that it was looking at about 70 miles per hour wind threat. And that considerable threat is not too dissimilar from the winds that you might see in a category 1 hurricane with 74 mile per hour wind. And so that was kind of one of the top tier storms we saw today. We also saw another storm that kind of did similar impacts across the greater Charlotte area off to the south. And that storm, too, was kind of moving off to the north and to the east. And we have lots of reports of power lines and tree damage in South Charlotte, also in eastern Mecklenburg County near Mint Hill. So that storm right now has lost some of its oomph. It's no longer pushing that considerable tag, that 70 mile per hour wind, but it is still producing a threat of 60 miles per hour wind, which we should not diminish either. And so you can see we've kind of got multiple polygons that represent a multi-county cluster associated with the same line of storms that stretches from the South Carolina side of things into the North Carolina side of things. And so those storms are continuing to push off to the north and to the east. And so they are still producing that threat of about 60 miles per hour wind. And if I switch over to the Raleigh radar, we can see a little bit where some of those winds are, but I'm going to try switching over to the terminal Doppler radar out of Charlotte, which is its primary job is to watch the airport. And we can kind of quarry some of the winds right now over towards Anson County. This is still in Union County here. I was very close to the line, about 48 miles an hour. It's certainly enough to bring down trees and power lines in some of those areas. As we roll it back, you can kind of see just north of downtown Monroe, we got about 63 mile per hour winds reported there on radar in the past 30 minutes or so. Even towards Midland here, this looks like another maybe 60 miles an hour. And that would have been pretty similar as I continue to rewind this backwards again to those microbursts and those damaging winds that we saw in the Hickory Grove area of Charlotte of at least 63 miles an hour. And down here in the Pineville, Ballantyne area of South Charlotte, at least winds on radar that I don't even think 49 was the highest. I think we saw even higher than that there. There's 55. Continuing to quarry these winds here on weather front. 63 miles an hour. And wow, even Reedy Creek, as we mentioned earlier, 73 miles per hour. So that kind of verifies that considerable tag the storm had a little bit earlier. And that's why we're seeing so many reports of downed trees and power lines back across east and southern portions of Mecklenburg County. Let's take those off. All right. Beehive's watching with us from Wilmington, where they had a tornado warning that expired just minutes ago. Winds have coming down there. Thanks for that update, Beehive. Do appreciate you following through with us and then kind of circling all the way back. Zachary asks, did a tornado touch down in Wilmington? I have no confirmation right now that a tornado actually touched down. We are in touch with the National Weather Service, emergency managers, and storm spotters. What we do believe happened is that there was a rotating wall cloud, which is kind of an appendage that comes out of the cloud that was rotating. We don't have any reports right now that it actually reached the ground. Reaching the ground is what would make it, by definition, a tornado. But the tornado warning was certainly valid in that it was issued for this rotation in a thunderstorm that was very near to the ground, because when a tornado warning is issued, they issue it at the National Weather Service either because a tornado is on the ground or a tornado is imminent and possible. And based on our understanding of that wall cloud that was reported 1 mile south-southwest of Wrightsville Beach, it was close enough to the ground that it wouldn't have taken much time at all for that to reach all the way down. So that's certainly why the National Weather Service issued that tornado warning. But I don't have any confirmation right now that there's damage associated with that tornado warning. But of course, we have plenty of other storms across the area that from Wilmington and beyond could still certainly produce damage. And before we split hairs on whether or not it was a thunderstorm wind damage or tornado wind damage report, let's just remind you wind is wind, and it's going to cause damage whether it's rotating in a funnel or not. And so that storm that's moving out of Wilmington does now have a special marine warning for it. And that is important because you can see that the National Weather Service is still keeping that potential waterspout threat with it. And that is essentially the equivalent of what we had. So as that storm pushes away from Wrightsville and out towards the ocean, that transitions from a tornado warning or severe thunderstorm warning to a special marine warning. At a certain point, it's going to only impact the fish, but it's going to impact boaters and beachgoers before that, and certainly those who are very close to the shore. So it is still worth watching. Zachary, you wrote thank you, and thank you very much for watching us here on the Carolina Weather Group. And as Beehive has mentioned, the tornado warning has expired over the Wilmington area. We'll watch to see if anything gets reissued. It's pouring in Pageland. Let's go back to Pageland. There it is. It's certainly pouring in Pageland. Pageland is under a severe thunderstorm warning for Lancaster and Chesterfield counties until 37 minutes from now. What is that? That's 5:45, right? And that's a threat for 60-mile-per-hour winds. And, oh, wow, that is very specific. Nickel-size hail, 0.88 of an inch. Very precise. But that warning kind of hugs the state line there. So Pageland, Jefferson, Chesterfield, Cheraw. And then, what does the storm care about state lines? I would say, although it's a different polygon, it's essentially all in the same cluster. This storm also continues into Scotland, Anson, Marlborough, and Richmond counties, and that goes for another 20 minutes. So that'll be about 5:30 or so. Storm clusters from there continue up north. And this is so interesting the way this kind of snakes like this. Remember a little bit earlier here on our storm coverage, we were watching, they were two distinct storm clusters. Remember right about in here, I circled, I said 1, I said 2, and then let's watch to see what happens in the middle. Well, lo and behold, what happened in the middle? It filled in. So now we're kind of dealing with one really long, snaky cluster of storms that do include portions of Montgomery and Anson and Stanley and Cabarrus and Union counties in North Carolina. We'll wait to see if the warning gets extended at all. But I mean, we are seeing thunderstorms now pushing towards the North Carolina Zoo, Asheboro. We got lightning reported there. Along the Interstate 73-74 corridor. And I think you could argue that goes almost all the way up into Greensboro right now. Greensboro, Raleigh-Durham, Winston-Salem, technically not inside the severe thunderstorm watch, but it doesn't mean we couldn't get an overachiever storm. So no one cares about Pageland. I know at least one person who cares about Pageland. And I'm sure it's more than that. We're gonna cover everybody. There's no warning right now for Wilmington. There's a flash flood warning, but there is no convective storm over Wilmington. There is a thunderstorm that is probably producing one of the more insane lightning shows you have ever seen, and I hope you're inside Wilmington. All right. We are also watching, and this is kind of new to the board, and this is actually a pretty good representation. It's kind of right there on the edge of that severe thunderstorm watch, but we're watching on the Georgia side of things. A thunderstorm cluster right now over Waynesboro, Georgia. Why are we talking about Georgia? Well, because these are going to come east into the Carolinas. So Richmond, Aiken, Screven, Burke, and Barnwell counties between Georgia and South Carolina. You're watching for a severe thunderstorm that's getting going now south of the city of Augusta. We also have a more discrete cell near St. Matthews in South Carolina. You guessed it, 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-size hail. Sorry, I'll get to what I just heard on the scanner in a second. What's very interesting about these storms, and we had thunderstorms roll through Columbia here in the last 20 minutes or so. But what's racing out ahead is you see this guy. Whoop, sorry, wrong button. See this guy right on in here? He's pretty faint. And watch what happens as I advance the radar. It moves off to the right. That's called an outflow boundary. And what an outflow boundary does is it's winds being pushed out from this advancing line of storms. So we have this line, it's pushing things out, and this is kind of the leading edge, like dropping a rock into the water and you see ripples. This outflow boundary is essentially the ripples in the air. And what that has allowed the atmosphere to do is generate new storms out ahead, right? So we have this severe thunderstorm warning. It's going to develop here along the outflow from the storm that came through Gaston and Oak Brook in the I-26 corridor. Let me remove my John Madden madness, and you can just watch to kind of see that form right on and about in there, just as that outflow arrives and kind of pushes all of that vapor up and creates a storm. And you can see that storm over just north of St. Matthew, which is severe warned, really just kind of popped up over the last 5 or 6 radar frames. And so this is a relatively new storm. Lucky for I-26 motorists, it's moving away from I-26. Unfortunately for Sumter, it's going to eventually come towards you. Not sure what just happened. I think our Carolina weather net got knocked off the air. We are back. We're back on the Carolina weather net. I am living in an area here in South Charlotte where there are numerous reports of trees and power lines down. So the fact that we're still on the air is actually wonderful. But somebody could have unplugged something for a moment to reconnect some power lines. So what we're watching here again is a relatively new storm. And this is in South Carolina. And so it's Sumter, Calhoun, and Richland counties for the next 32 minutes or so, so about 5:45. Eastover, Wedgefield, Pinewood, Lakewood, and if it makes it all the way to Sumter. Now, we were talking about the outflow boundary. That outflow boundary is pushing off towards Sumter as well, too. So we could actually see additional storms pop out ahead of either one of these storm clusters that are moving through the area. I Believer Forever says, you're doing great work covering a wide area. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So we'll watch for new storms to develop there. All of these storms potentially are going to have those outflow boundaries. So where we have clusters of storms developing, we'll watch downstream for interactions that could create new storms. I know lots of you are watching from Wilmington right now. The tornado warning did expire at the top of the hour at 5 o'clock. It's 5:14 now. We don't have a tornado warning. We don't have a severe thunderstorm warning. What we do have out over Wilmington for a severe storm that is continuing to move out towards the water is a marine warning. So we're watching mostly for impacts that soon will be out over the water. I understand that they're not there yet. You guys are seeing an insane amount of lightning, potentially some strong winds. So the National Weather Service doesn't have a warning right now on land, which means they're not seeing 60-mile-per-hour winds. They're not seeing 1-inch size hail. They're not seeing a tornado rotation with this storm. But you guys have been kind of hammered here multiple times. I know you've been getting alerts on your phones from your universities, from your local emergency officials. There was a tornado warning earlier. It has been allowed to expire. We watched kind of on radar where some of that tornadic rotation near Ogden, I know some of you are watching from Ogden, from Kings Grant, the potential rotation on radar, as best as I can see it, was near US 17. And then as it moved up towards Bayshore, it transitioned to kind of this big green, red blob. And so what that tells us is we're no longer dealing with a tight rotation of a tornado-like structure, but we're dealing more with winds that are just pushing out and collapsing from a thunderstorm. So we still could certainly see some impacts from that, some damaging, winds that bring down power lines and trees and the like. But the good news is we're not seeing anything rotate. I'm in touch with the local officials there. The last I heard from them was just the storm report of the rotating wall cloud near right off of Military Cutoff Road. And that was at about 4:42. So a good 30 minutes ago, there was a rotating wall cloud. And again, if you weren't here earlier for our definition of a rotating wall cloud, it was certainly a part of the thunderstorm that was rotating. It did not reach the ground, as best as I'm able to tell you right now. So that's good news. We do have, not to be left out, a flash flood warning for New Hanover that goes for another 3 hours and 14 minutes. It's not the only flash flood warning. Matter of fact, on the board right now, we do have numerous other areas that are seeing flash flood warnings just because we're seeing this like repeated over and over and over again impact of the heavy rain that's associated with any of these storms, whether or not they're severe or not, they could still produce a good onslaught of rain. And I'm talking, 1 to 2 inches of rain that could pretty much flood some areas fairly quickly, especially if that area is low lying, has poor drainage, um, is along a creek or a stream, things of that nature. So let's see. I think I can. I was going to try to turn off the radar. I'll figure that out. What I can also show you, because you guys have been asking about this too, right? So this is kind of the convective threat that we're looking at for today, August 21st, 2026. And that yellow represents tier 2 out of 5. Storm Prediction Center says that that area there is where we're likely to see the biggest storm threats. And those storm threats are mostly in the form of wind. So when I break down who's going to see wind, it's that same cluster of area. When I look at who's going to see a tornado, almost no one, almost no one. And the hail threat is still kind of there too. The other thing I can show you guys, and this goes back to the flooding thing, is the excessive rainfall outlook. So who's going to see an excessive amount of rainfall? And this is actually a scale, not a 5, but a 4. And so when we see that yellow area that's also called slight, it's 2 out of 4. Semantics. But you can see that a lot of the Carolinas are in that yellow area. Nearly everyone else is at least in that marginal green area for seeing excessive rain. So any of these storms, severe or not severe, could produce flooding, excessive rain, if you would. Can you keep making those wonderful gestures? I certainly can. And if I make the right gestures, my camera sometimes reacts. Hey, oh, look at that. There you go. Dinner and a show. Please zoom back in, camera. Hello, camera. Whatever. This comment is certainly, I think, mostly telling. Seems to be rain and straight line winds. Yes, that is in fact the primary threat is rain and straight line winds. And straight line winds are going to be the rain, the winds that come from those thunderstorms, and less so from tornadoes. And so that's why when we click on the severe thunderstorm watch, we can see that the tornadic threat is relatively low. It's the wind threat that is really elevated for today. We saw a tornado warning. We could see another one again. But again, it's mostly winds. So we should be treating a lot of these thunderstorm warnings almost as if they're tornado warnings and seeking shelter, getting away from windows and doors and all that jazz because of how intense some of them are and have been. I'm thinking in particular to when we had those thunderstorms that were the considerable tier thunderstorms. We are getting some additional storm reports that are kind of filling back in from those considerable threats. The National Weather Service is going to get these populated as quickly as they can. Their first priority is always towards the live storms on radar, and then they fill in the damage reports back behind them. But as you can see, numerous trees down and damage to power lines and traffic signals on the northeast side of Charlotte near the Hickory Grove area. And I suspect we will get a similar one of those populated over South Charlotte a little bit. On the South Carolina side of things, trees and power lines down at multiple locations along Old Nations Ford Road in Fort Mill. And up here in Cabarrus County, outside of the city of Concord, this is near Mount Pleasant, trees down power lines, North Carolina, State Highway 49. Still a very impressive thunderstorm cluster moving off now away from Charlotte into central portions of North Carolina, into portions of the Sandhill of South Carolina. Our next major metropolitan city, if it were to hold together, would be Fayetteville. That's not to make any light of Pinehurst or Laurinburg or Sanford or Rockingham or Hamlet. We love you all just as much. And so we'll see this coming into the I-73-74 corridor here in the next 30 to 45 minutes or so. Here's another one of those flash flood warnings. This one's out towards Whiteville. It's in portions of Columbus County, goes for another hour or so. You guys are also commenting that you're watching storms in other portions of the country. Yeah, we are certainly seeing storms elsewhere in other portions of the country. You can see as I zoom on out here on the Weatherfront app, you might be able to track some of these along with us at home on the Weatherfront app. You can see we do have clusters of storms up towards Chicago, down towards New Orleans. And so we do have numerous areas right now across the country that are seeing severe weather outbreaks. Obviously, our priority here at the Carolina Weather Group, here at home in North Carolina and South Carolina. I'm continuing to listen in the background, and I don't know if you guys can hear it, but where I'm located in South Charlotte, the police, the fire, they've been doing an outstanding job trying to get to all of the areas where there were reported trees and power lines down. And they're trying to do traffic control. They're trying to clear any damage. There sounds like there's quite a bit going on. Matter of fact, what I can show you, if it wants to load here, is the city of Charlotte. The police department has a page. Let's just take a look at this right now. This is all of the active traffic incidences that the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department is responding to. These are all active. This is not an archival list. And you can see that after a few that are just kind of hanging out from earlier, starting at about 4 o'clock, this list gets long. These are all of the things that the men and women of the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department are responding out to. You can see a lot of them are road blockage. So that could be trees, that could be power lines, accidents in roadways. There's unfortunately a hit and run investigation, a traffic light malfunction. If the National Weather Service were to populate these as storm damage reports, as you can see, there'd be dozens of them. And so that's just an idea right now of all of the things that the National Weather Service and local emergency officials are dealing with just exclusively in the Charlotte area. Let's check in with the North Carolina Department of Transportation. We had them on our podcast not too long ago, and they were talking about all their wonderful cameras out there. And we can see right now we got incidents reported all across the interstate system. I'm going to start here in Charlotte, and then I'm going to go to other regions in both states. But I want to talk about just some of the things that we're seeing right now. We do have sporadic lane closures here and there. What I'm watching for mostly is any area that's maybe dealing with more than one lane closed. So down here in Pineville, where again, we know that the storms were relatively strong as they came on through. What's the impact to traffic right now? We're certainly in the midst of that Friday rush hour. The traffic on the center of your screen moving away from us is heading towards Johnston Road, US 521 in the Ballantyne area. And you can see just how backed up it is. Now, the National Weather Service, the North Carolina Department of Transportation is telling us that at least 2 lanes are closed. And I'm trying to see exactly where and why, other than, of course, just typical rush hour commute problems. But you can see just how congested some of those roadways are, but also the fact that the storms have already kind of rolled through this area, but we're still seeing very slick roadway conditions and low visibility in some places. So keep those speeds down. It looks like there was an accident on 485 outer loop near US 521. Perhaps it's been cleared now off to the right shoulder, and that's some of the activity we see there. Let's zoom on out. We're going to check other areas in North Carolina, and then again, don't worry, we're going to do South Carolina as well too. I'm looking for more than just your typical traffic report. I could do fender benders for the next 2 hours, probably across the Carolinas, considering how strong and impactful some of these storm clusters were. But I'm looking for anything right now that is above normal, that really probably was caused by the weather or is being hampered by the weather. We're looking in Fayetteville, North Carolina here. You can see a construction zone. Traffic is real slow, but we also know there were lots of reports of trees down across this kind of greater area a little bit earlier. And it looks like there's somebody moving this camera around right now along I-95 here in the Fayetteville area. I see flashing lights, looks like blue flashing lights off to the top left, yellow flashing lights off to the top right. And so we're possibly dealing with maybe police on one side of I-95 and construction or a tow truck on the other side. I think that's I-95 in the middle there that's going so slow. It looks like both those emergency vehicles are off on the service roads, but certainly impacts right now from those storms. The access to these cameras is a relatively new thing. And we even have cameras down towards Ogden, where we were tracking that tornado warning a little bit earlier. You guys have been checking in a lot from Wilmington area, from Ogden, and I keep telling you, hey, there's no warning. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's not impactful, right? You're certainly seeing heavy rain, lots of lightning. This is the latest picture I have. I don't even think I can get the video to load right now of the traffic impacts in the Ogden area, just outside of Wilmington. So this would be US 17. Also, Market Street would be what it's called. And so even though there's not a warning per se there right now, you can see that the afternoon Friday afternoon commute in the Wilmington area, for those of you trying to start your weekend, is off to a rough start. Across much of this area, it's lucky for us that we actually have these cameras on surface streets. They are right; they're not just on the highway. I can't get any of these to play, but you can kind of get an idea of what the weather conditions are like there right now in that greater Wilmington area. What is this, Lumberton? What do you got for me? Just a reported incident on I-95 type of. Oh, that's yeah. Okay, that's the one we just looked at. All right, let's go to South Carolina, shall we? All right, let's see what South Carolina's got for us. Plethora of things. Let's go up here first to York County. We know they got whopped pretty good by the storm a little bit earlier. That doesn't seem too terribly backed up. That's good news. Maybe that's cleared and they just still need to get that exclamation point off of there. Columbia. Hey, lo and behold, Columbia's got traffic, guys. Who would have guessed? Columbia kind of dodged a bullet. I mean, you certainly got rain and you got lightning and you got thunder, but the fact that we were watching a considerable storm off to your east and then it didn't really hold together with that same intensity, I mean, that's good news. That's certainly good news. Not to say that it's fun right now. Not to say that any of that traffic is fun right now, because it's certainly not. But I keep thinking of a world where there was possibly even more impacts from a storm that could have been, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Hey, Upstate, we haven't talked a whole lot about you because right now you're not really clocking a whole lot on the board. But yes, high 85 in Upstate South Carolina. What a joy to drive there. So much fun all the time. All right. For better or for worse, not seeing anything too shocking. So let's go back out to weather front. Let's look at radar. We do have a new warning. You can see it flashing here. This just came in from the National Weather Service in South Carolina for Georgetown and Williamsburg counties. 60-mile-per-hour winds, 1-inch size hail. Goes for 46 minutes, so that's going to take us till 6:15. And we can kind of see here on radar some of those winds in the last 10, 15 minutes or so. Not the strongest storm we've seen all day, but it is a severe thunderstorm warning nonetheless. It's something we want to pay close attention to. Now, I feel like one of the last storms I was talking about was that storm that had developed over St. Matthews. And there it is, right? So we were talking about those outflow boundaries. There's the outflow boundary coming over towards Sumter. And what's left of the storms coming out of Columbia, they're kind of pushing off to the north and the east. And the storm that's coming out of St. Matthews is also going north and east, but I would say he's going more north. And so that's creating an interesting interaction. But again, what I'm curious to see is we've got two outflow boundaries that are about to collide. So I'm going to highlight the outflow boundary itself. We got the one here, and then we got another one that's like over here-ish. And that's from the storms over Lynchburg and the I-95 corridor. These are pushing this way. Not the storms, but the outflow. And this is pushing this way. So everything in here, we're about to get a squeeze play. Okay? So when we look at the very latest radar scan, those outflow boundaries, they have advanced to about here. And as far as I can tell, about here. And so I think over Sumter right now, we're about to get the squeeze play of these outflow boundaries. These are coming out in advance of a storm. These are coming in the rear of a storm. And those two areas of wind are going to kind of collide over Sumter. And if you think about your understanding of earthquakes and tectonic plates, translate that now to air in the atmosphere. And it's going to push that air up. It's going to take that humidity with it. And that's going to create a storm and come on back down. Somebody talked to me before about talking with my hands, and I'm doing it again. So we should keep a close eye on the Sumter area for the possible development of additional storms. Matter of fact, I think we just got an update here that's flashing on me. Sumter, Calhoun, and Richland counties, again, they have a severe thunderstorm warning for the next 15 minutes or so, 60-mile-per-hour winds, nickel-size hail. We'll watch for, I think that's going to get expanded over Sumter if I had to guess over the next couple of minutes. I'm going to check back in with Duke Energy. And before you light up in the comments, yes, I know there are other power companies besides Duke Energy, but they cover kind of a good plethora of people. They give us good sampling. And so it seems like the numbers of power outages right now still kind of hover over Charlotte and south of Fayetteville and out towards Wilmington. And 34,000 customers in the greater Charlotte area is a lot, but it seems to have stopped climbing. And that's good news. So let's look here at what we're dealing with. We're still dealing with about 25,000 Duke Energy customers without power in Mecklenburg County. A customer is just an address. It could be a home, could be a business. So inside of that home or business, there's certainly going to be multiple people. You have a family of 4, Duke Energy considers that to be one customer. So 25,000 customers, that number of people impacted is a multiplier and is much larger. What we haven't necessarily checked on just yet is some of these other counties. So Union County, North Carolina, 3,000 Duke Energy customers without power. Lancaster, about 1,300. And Chester, which we checked in a little bit earlier, still a little shy of 4,000, but Duke Energy only services 15,000 customers there. Let's switch this back over. And instead of looking at county-wide numbers, let's look at some of these locations. Because what I want to get a sense of is, like, when are the lights coming back on in Providence Plantation? Don't know. All right. When are the lights coming back on at the Arboretum? Don't know. All right. We're off to a great start. Let's go up towards South Park, Quail Hollow. When are the lights coming back on? Don't know. Okay. Do we know when any of these lights are going to be restored? No. We do know that this one over here near Star Hollows, the outage was caused by fallen trees and limbs on power lines. I probably could have told you that. So I would mostly say it's too early to know when the power is going to come back on in some of these places. How about Mint Hill? Nope. Weather related. The last one said weather related. Yeah, fallen trees and power lines. Yep. Kind of figured that. Crews are actively working to restore power. Hey, we found one. Crews are actively working to restore power. Should be back by midnight here in, where am I? I'm not too far from the Hickory Grove region. Robinson Church Road. Plight Road. East W.T. Harris Boulevard. Crews are not yet to all of the different areas, but they are certainly out there. They are working. And we did at least get one ETA there, which would be about that midnight time frame. What does that tell us? Just a little. Lancaster, outside of Lancaster. Repairs and damage assessments underway. No ETA there yet that I saw. Lansford, Lancaster, repairs and damage assessments underway. They've got crews on the scene. Chester, city of Chester. Wow, you guys got really hit. Crews working on it. All right, so mostly too early to know when the power will be coming back on for some of these places. Let's just try a different region. Wilmington. Okay, so now this is interesting. All right. Ogden, are you still with me? So you had that storm, right? You had that tornado warning that came on through. Look at all the power outages that it brought down. We still don't know exactly whether or not a tornado hit the ground, and I'm not here to fight with you or split hairs on what you saw or you didn't see. But nonetheless, the weather produced wind that brought down power lines and trees. I think we can all agree on that. And so you can see there are several thousand. I think if I zoom all the way out, I got to 3,000 Duke Energy power customers without power in the greater Wilmington area. And Fayetteville's got some too. This outage has recently been updated. Please refresh the map. Okay, I'll refresh the map. Hey, I think it was updated. I think that outage went away. Do I have the power to make outages go away by clicking on them? That would be amazing. So yeah, we'll keep a close eye on that. Hey, let's go back over to radar and see what we've missed. Okay, news since we last checked the radar. We do have now a flash flood warning for portions of Anson and Richmond counties in North Carolina associated with a relatively slow-moving line of thunderstorms that is producing not only a wind and lightning threat, but now also causing roadway flooding, stream and creek flooding, and in an area that has seen storms kind of on again, off again, repeated across the region. as we've gone through not only last night, but this morning as well, too. All right, I'm checking in with the National Weather Service. We're in a credentialed chat room with the National Weather Service, emergency management, local officials, kind of give us a better sense of what's happening on the ground. And I'm just kind of browsing the chat here. Okay, so just moments ago, that flash flood warning that I was just telling you about, there's this section for Anson and Richmond, but then there's actually another section up here to the north. Notice that this one is considerable. So for Moore, Richmond, Montgomery, Stanley, and Randolph counties in North Carolina, the threat of flash flooding is considerable, tier 2 out of 3. So just like with our considerable severe thunderstorm warnings, this is more than your typical flash flood warning. So until 8:30 tonight, this considerable flash flood warning is in effect again for Moore, Richmond, Montgomery, Stanley, and Randolph counties. That's because Doppler radar indicates thunderstorms producing heavy rain across the warned area. Between 1 and 3 inches of rain have fallen, with additional rainfall amounts between 1 and 3 inches possible in the area. So again, we've already had 1 to 3, and we could get 1 to 3 more. So on the upper side, that would be 6 in total. So life-threatening flash flooding is occurring because of these thunderstorms producing the flash flooding. Locations include Albemarle, Troy, Baden Lake, Biscoe, Hoffman, Norwood, Baden, Mount Gilead, Robbins, Ellerby, Foxfire, Star, Candor, Norman, Peckensteeds, Eagle Springs, Uwharrie Haven, Lake Tillery, and Murrow Mountain State Park. I hope I got those close or mostly right. As a reminder, if you come across flooded roadways, turn around, don't drown. You won't be able to tell how deep the water is on some of those roads. We did also get a report in the same general area in Albemarle where a gas station canopy collapsed. Luckily, there were no injuries reported with that. Those structures tend to be relatively weak, tend to be some of the first structures that collapse when the winds increase. That's not to diminish the fact that, again, we did get a gas station canopy collapse on South 2nd Street in Albemarle. No injuries reported with that. We are watching for these storms as they continue to push off to the east, and it does look like the National Weather Service now has that severe thunderstorm warning going as far east as almost to Sanford. So Pinehurst, you're in the severe thunderstorm warning now. Cameron and Carthage, Hoffman, Norman, everybody in that I-73, I-74 corridor, and now off to the east. They're a little bit just off the interstate. You're inside of that severe thunderstorm warning for the threat of 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-size hail being 1 inch size hail. I am heavily checking back in with the National Weather Service in Wilmington to see if we get any new information about that earlier tornado warning that they had issued, any new information about damages that came in. Nothing new to report just yet, other than they did get a report, an estimated wind report between 45 and 50 miles an hour in Scotts Hill, with whiteout rain and small limbs breaking off healthy pine trees. I'm going to guess, and chat, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but if you're in that Scotts Hill area or anybody that's seeing 40 to 55 mile per hour winds with whiteout conditions, it's going to feel like a severe thunderstorm warning. And what I mean by that is you might not see an actual severe thunderstorm warning on the map because that technically requires 60 mile per hour winds. But I don't want to split hairs with you. I have also been in some of these storms that are not by definition severe, but by golly, the trees outside were bending over and dancing, and it was scary. And so I totally get you when you're talking about exactly what some of these storms might really be doing when they're on the ground. We have just seen an update from the National Weather Service, and that is that the severe thunderstorm watch has been scaled back. And so the line of storms that came through Charlotte, you're done. You're done now. So the severe thunderstorm warnings and the watches, you're all clear. I got to work on my writing. Upstate South Carolina, the I-77 corridor in North Carolina, western North Carolina. We're still watching for a storm threat across portions of central South Carolina, Sand Hills, up towards central North Carolina, as well as off to the east, right? So the coastal areas, South Carolina, that's Georgetown, that's Myrtle Beach, North Carolina, that's Wilmington, that's Jacksonville, that's New Bern. You're still under that severe thunderstorm watch for another 3 hours and 19 minutes until 9 o'clock. It's been a moment since I've had a chance to read chat. Let's do that, shall we? This is an interesting comment. Guys, I'm really scared. My friend is trying to survive a tornado. Now he isn't responding. I don't know where this friend is. What I'll just try to pass along is some optimism that maybe perhaps the phones aren't working, the power is out, the cell towers are down. We have seen that certainly before in severe weather where the communications get knocked out. And so I hope you hear from your friends shortly and that everything is fine where they are. All right, I'm just reading comments. You guys have been really chatting it up. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone who's been talking so far. Yeah, Myrtle Beach is starting to get storms now, certainly. Yeah, we can see that there's some storms out over Myrtle Beach and Conway. The severe storm, again, with the 60-mile-per-hour winds and the quarter-size hail back over Georgetown and Williamsburg County is still off to your west there. But we'll watch on radar. Here on Weatherfront, we can kind of see how some of those storms are really just starting to emerge and come up US 701. Come into Conway, come into Myrtle Beach. They're probably interacting again with those outflow boundaries. Sometimes you get kind of like sea surface coming boundaries that come off the water. And so there's lots of different interaction that could be happening there. But again, yeah, certainly Myrtle Beach and surrounding communities, you're still under the severe thunderstorm watch. I think it's pretty much safe to say like you haven't gotten your dishing of the storms just yet, and that they will be coming your way here in the next little bit as we continue to watch storms move across the area. I did want to check out this damage report here in Fayetteville because it's not the wind damage report. It looks like a lightning bolt. Let's see. So what do I have here? So this one says multiple large branches and tops of trees are down along Barfoot Road and Wren Road, just across the county line in Rickfish area of Cumberland and Hoke counties. The area is experiencing a power outage with multiple streetlights out and heavy lightning and winds, heavy ponding on roadways. That's a damage report that comes to us not from the National Weather Service, but from storm tracker Bobby Baker. So thank you for that. I was going to say essay, but I don't mean that in a bad way. It was a nice report of all that has been experienced across that area. I think this storm report might be new too. Down here in Oak Grove, trees down Livingston Road, 430. All right. So continuing to track storms right now. The time is 5:45. I'm James Brierton coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina. You're watching the Carolina Weather Group on all of our platforms. We are also here every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern with a podcast talking about weather science, technology, and more from the Carolinas and beyond. And we're here for you 24/7 over on our YouTube channel with a service that we call the Carolina Weather Net with live radar, sky cams, and real-time alerts from the National Weather Service. And as you can see, we're also here tracking storms as often as we possibly can. Our crews are spread out across the Carolinas to give you a local perspective from your neck of the woods. If you're with me tonight from Charlotte, you're my neighbor. And at other times, you might see our crew members in other locations. DJ is asking, what's the biggest threat for Myrtle Beach? So the biggest threat for Myrtle Beach, like everyone else, is still going to be 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, maybe small hail. Lightning threat is relatively low. What I can do, DJ, is I can actually switch this over here on Weatherfront to look at the latest HRRR, kind of future cast radar model, if you will. And so this is more or less where we are right now. And I'm keeping my clear on there to kind of give you guys an idea of what's clear. We've got kind of more or less two lines, one over Wilmington, one coming across the central portions of the Carolinas. And as we go through here and push on off into the future, you'll see that we still get storms over Myrtle Beach closer to that 9 o'clock hour. And so that's why that severe thunderstorm watch goes for so long. Now, the latest computer model run is actually trying to bring more rain into western North Carolina and upstate South Carolina. It's still in the clear territory. We don't technically have a watch there anymore, but we could still see gusty winds and heavy rain in some places. So that would still certainly be worth keeping a close eye on for any storms, any rumbles of thunder that might kind of sneak up on us, if you will, as we go on throughout the rest of the evening hours. Especially if you were heading out someplace dark or late at night, you wouldn't want that to sneak up on you if you were going to be traveling. You can track along with us on the Weatherfront app. That's what we have on the screen for you right now. And we're continuing to, wow, that is a huge severe thunderstorm warning. So the severe thunderstorm warning is kind of just a big, giant, okay. You saw that get smaller, right? It's like I looked at it and I got scared and it got smaller. Are you still considerable? Yeah, okay, so there's a lot going on here. Let's talk about this. Central North Carolina, are you with me? The I-73, I-74 corridor, including Albemarle, Wadesboro, Rockingham, Ellerbe, Pinehurst, Sanford, just south of Asheboro. This severe thunderstorm warning's got like everything going on. So it's got 70 mile per hour wind threat, which makes it a considerable severe thunderstorm warning, a tier 2 out of 3. It has a hail threat of golf ball size, 1.75 inches, 1 3/4 inches. And just in case you needed anything more with this storm, it also has the possibility of producing a tornado. There's a lot going on here, and I'm going to tell you all about it so that you can prepare now with plenty of lead time out across this area. But what's happening is the storms are all colliding together, and they're creating kind of a massive severe thunderstorm warning. And that is producing not only the 70 mile per hour winds, but some rotation that we are seeing out towards Troy. Let me show that to you. So if we switch this on over to velocity, some of the best possibilities for tornado are going to be right on over here near the Troy area. Bisco, Star, again, I-73, I-74 corridor. And I'm not even sure it's just one location, if I'm being honest with you. Because while I'm looking here, I'm also looking here at this little notch. And we're watching right now. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I think right in here, this notch coming towards Candor. If I were to put this in a side-by-side view, and we've got winds on the left and reflectivity on the right, and I think my face is probably blocking some of that. We're watching for a possible tornado based on radar signatures coming towards Candor in the I-73, I-74 corridor. And again, that's not the only thing we're watching with these storms. The storm has essentially every possible thing going on with it right now. So that's what the rain looks like, the reflectivity. That's probably what you're used to seeing on your radar. The reflectivity we're seeing right now on radar, winds of at least 46, 48. If I take it back a frame or two, 48 miles an hour. So let's call it near 50. And then we're also watching for hail with this storm. Hail's something we have kind of mentioned in passing. But you can see on radar, this is the hail over Mount Gilead. And again, that's moving off to the north and the east. So Candor, Bisco, Troy, Norman, Seven Lakes. Wow, that was purple size hail at one point. Okay, what is purple size hail? Well, that's very technical information right there, but that's fairly large size hail. You can see on our little scale there. Purple is worse than red. Don't ask me who decided that, but on your traffic light scale of things and weather, green, yellow, red, purple. Don't ask. I don't know why. That's just what it is. So the hail threat has come down slightly, but we're still watching for some pretty large hail in the Mount Gilead area. And what I'm also watching for, and that's what's in the bottom right now, is correlation coefficient. So most of these products, they're looking at rain, they're looking at hail, they're looking at winds. Correlation coefficient is essentially going to tell us if there's anything else in the storm. Tree branches, debris. You most often see that with tornadoes. Not seeing anything just yet, which is good news. We don't want to see anything on correlation coefficient. I don't want to see anything being lofted and picked up. But again, this is kind of a double whammy happening here, because in addition to the severe storm, we also have the rainfall accumulation that has been produced across this area, leading to considerable flash flooding, because we're seeing areas that easily have. I was a 3. I saw a 3. I saw a 3-inch there. There it is. There's one. Got one down here towards 4 inches south of Wadesboro. And so let me just read to you a little bit of what the National Weather Service is concerned about, what they're looking at, and we'll go ahead and continue to keep that on the nearest radar. Unfortunately, these storms are kind of out of radars, nowhere land. The best radar is out their way from Raleigh, so it's not particularly close. Montgomery County, Moore County, Richmond County, Stanley County, you're looking at this flash flood warning because, again, anywhere between 1 to 3 inches of rain have already fallen, with additional rainfall amounts between 1 and 3 still possible across that warned area. And so that's why there's a considerable threat there with that storm. In addition, that storm that is producing all of that rain is also producing, this is just a little nuts. All of the parameters here. Tornado possible, 70-mile-per-hour winds, golf ball size hail, and considerable damage threat. That's a lot, guys. And so, just a moment ago, we got this in from the National Weather Service. I'm just going to read it to you. Severe thunderstorm warning remains in effect until 6:30 for Moore, Scotland, Anson, Montgomery, Stanley, Lee, and Hoke counties. Severe thunderstorm located near Biscoe, also near Troy, moving northeast at 30 miles an hour. Golf ball size hail, 70-mile-per-hour winds. People and animals outdoors will be injured. Expect damage to roofs, siding, windows, and vehicles. Considerable tree damage is also possible, with wind damage also likely to impact mobile homes, roofs, and outbuildings. Locations include Southern Pines, Rockingham, Troy, Carthage, Pinehurst, Aberdeen, Biscoe, Ansonville, Hoffman, and Polkton, just to name a few. This area also includes Interstate 73 between mile markers 26 and 60. Yeah, that's like 34 miles of interstate. Move yourself to an interior room on the lowest level of a sturdy building, a.k.a. treat this like a tornado warning. This is a severe thunderstorm warning. Treat it like a tornado warning. If you're in this area, which is a lot of people, a pretty large area, treat it like a tornado warning. Get yourself to the lowest level of a sturdy structure away from windows and doors. Fix your viewers so we know what you're talking about. Can somebody give me some more context on that? I'm not sure what we're talking about, but I'm happy to fix anything that needs to be fixed. Looks like Charlotte is clear based on the radar reading. Yes, Charlotte is clear. Is it possible that Myrtle Beach could get a weak tornado? Possible, sure. Likely, no. Wilmington won't be clear until after 9 o'clock. The immediate threat has kind of moved out, but we're watching this other line continuing to move through. How are we looking this evening? Depends where you are. But again, areas that are shaded in yellow with a yellow background, have a severe thunderstorm watch until 9 o'clock. So severe storms are still possible in all of those areas. And let's be honest, some of the areas adjacent to it. Because we mentioned this earlier, and here it is. We have a severe thunderstorm warning for Randolph, Alamance, Orange, and Chatham County. You're not in the watch, but you have a warning. Congratulations, you've won without actually playing. And so that includes Mabin, Burlington, Hillsborough, Saxapahaw, 60-mile-per-hour winds, and penny-size hail. And if that continues off to the east, that would come into Chapel Hill, Durham, and Raleigh. Again, a watch means conditions are likely. You're not in the watch. Somehow, you still got a warning. The storm's overachieved. But I'm trying not to go too far away from this guy in the middle of North Carolina because he's checking all the boxes right now on really calling my attention to things. We're continuing to see winds with this storm near Bisco of at least 50 miles an hour on radar. And let's look at the Drive NC website. Do we have interstate cameras there? I don't know. It's a relatively new section of interstate, right? Whoa. Let's see. No. No, we don't have any cameras there. Cameras are on. I have no cameras on I-73, 74, whatever you want to call it. Well, that's disappointing. All right, well, let's depend on radar. So again, 50-mile-per-hour winds coming through Star, coming through Bisco. And we can look at the hail threat. The hail threat has come down, which is good. Because at one point, the hail threat was quite high over Norwood and Mount Gilead. The hail threat has come on down. So I don't think the golf ball size hail, when the Weather Service updates this warning, that will probably be walked back down. It'd be fascinating to know, anybody who's in this area, how big the hail was that actually fell. But let's check the wind threat again was 70. I think the wind threat is still elevated, right? So we'll wait to see if the Weather Service decides to go with the 60-mile-per-hour base or the 70-mile-per-hour considerable, but one way or the other, we're still looking at least 50-mile-per-hour winds with this. You can see why the warning came up to the north there, Silver City. So yeah, we'll wait to see what the National Weather Service does. This particular warning out here in the center of the state is under the jurisdiction of the National Weather Service in Raleigh. And we're using their radar. I don't think our... Oh, we did get an update. All right, they've taken the tornado threat out. They've backed the winds down to 60. So it's although it still says considerable threat because of what they're keeping the golf ball size hail. I'm not questioning them. It's just not what I was expecting. We are getting reports out of Albemarle in Stanley County, which was kind of just downstream of this. So we're getting reports right on in here that strong winds caused a partial collapse of a structure over gas pumps. So that's the gas awning we told you a little bit about earlier. Also, out of Stanley County, a tree was blown down, blocking the lanes of traffic along Fink Road. Those will be on the map here shortly. I'd have to imagine if they're not already. So we're starting to see some of the damage reports come in. Again, the National Weather Service is always going to put the priority towards issuing warnings of things that are on radar right now, and then we'll start to get kind of backfilled on the damage reports and such as time goes on, as they're able to. But this is so interesting to me that they're keeping the hail threat out of abundance of caution. Let me try different radars. So yeah, again, I mean, when we take now, I'm looking for the weather radar in Wilmington. I'm just curious to see if it's any different than what Raleigh is seeing. We saw a very high hail threat, Norwood, Mount Gilead, Ansonville. I can't even imagine. I'm hoping we get some pictures out of there soon. The hail threat seems to have come down, but I guess it's still red. It's just not purple. What's it look like from Columbia? Probably the same idea. So this is kind of a radar no man's land. The radars are all pretty far away. You can see right where that hail threat is. The National Weather Service has got that polygon like right there. So that's real fascinating to me. That again, they have that considerable damage threat for the golf ball size hail. Still with the storm as it pushes off now. So, we're getting the storm impacts in Bisco, Candor, Norman, Robbins, and Seven Lakes, Foxfire, Carthage, Whispering Pine, Pinehurst, you're kind of next where that storm is going to bring impacts to. The storms, I'm going to take you way down to the other side here. The storms that were coming out of Georgia, south of Augusta, yeah, they've kind of pushed off some severe storms now back towards Barnwell, Allendale, Sardis on the Georgia side. All right. The comment here from YouTube comes to us from North Carolina, from Randolph County. Neighbors with trees down, wind and rain were really bad, and our power is out. Yeah, I don't know if the Duke Energy map is going to show that just yet, but I would suspect whether it's Duke or another power company, we're going to get lots of power damage reports coming to us again from that central region of North Carolina, where this considerable threat is ongoing. Moore, Anson, Richmond, Montgomery, and Lee. So thank you, Mommy3Boys on YouTube, for that report. Do appreciate that very much. All right, it's about 6 o'clock now here on the Carolina Weather Group. I'm James Brierton, streaming with you across our Carolina Weather Group network. It is August 21st, 2026. It's a Friday. What a way to start off the weekend with a considerable line of storms moving across the region. You can see they have left us with many storm reports across the region and a severe thunderstorm watch that will go until 9 o'clock. Even though that the watch has been dropped for the I-85 corridor in South Carolina, the I-77 corridor, the I-40 corridor, we are watching on Futurecast a few more storms could get going across that region later on today. We don't expect them to be as strong and severe, which is why there's no longer a watch there. But off to the east, these lines that we've been watching, the first line now out over the ocean, or will be shortly off for eastern North Carolina, and the second line marching its way across central North Carolina, across portions of the Sandhills and into coastal South Carolina. You can see that until that about 9-10 o'clock hour as we go on through tonight, we're watching for additional storms to continue to impact those regions. We now have a tornado warning that has just been issued in central North Carolina for Moore, Montgomery, Randolph, and Chatham counties. Oh, man, this storm, man, is keeping us on our toes. This is the same storm that had all of the boxes checked, and we took the tornado possible out. We kept the large hail. Now we got a tornado warning in it. Okay. So, yeah, if you're feeling a little whiplash, so am I. And it's going to be right on in here where on radar we can see about 60-mile-per-hour winds associated with this storm. And so the National Weather Service has gone ahead and issued a tornado warning. And I'm going to leave the radar on the screen for you here as I continue to read off some of what the National Weather Service has just sent us. But this is for northwestern Moore County, northeastern Montgomery County, southeastern Randolph County, southwestern Chatham counties until 6:30. It's currently 6:05. A severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located near Biscoe or 10 miles northeast of Troy is moving east at 20 miles an hour. Flying debris will be dangerous to those caught without shelter. Mobile homes will be damaged or destroyed. Damage to roofs, windows, and vehicles will occur. Tree damage is likely. This tornadic thunderstorm will remain over mainly rural areas over northwestern Moore, northeastern Montgomery, southeastern Randolph, and southeastern Chatham counties, including the following locations of High Falls, Harper's Crossroads, Steeds, Star, and Robbins. It also includes Interstate 73 between mile markers 47 and 60. So we're talking about 12, 13 miles there of interstate. Take cover now. Move to a basement or an interior room at the lowest level of a sturdy building. Avoid windows if you have to go outdoors. If you are outdoors or in a mobile home or in a vehicle, move to a closest substantial shelter and protect yourself from flying debris. Wow. This storm is just pulling all the punches. And that's why the National Weather Service has gone ahead and issued that tornado warning. You can see the winds here on radar coming down North Carolina State Highway 24, pushing at least 60 miles an hour.
58 miles an hour there as it comes towards Robbins. Out of Star, out of Bisco. You can actually see that the tornado warning kind of straddles two of the severe thunderstorm warnings. So, Bennett, you've got the tornado warning. And so these storms are producing quite the amount of wind. Even if is or is not a tornado, I think the wind threat with these storms is going to be fairly incredible. And so it's kind of a double whammy communication to say that there's both a considerable severe thunderstorm warning for the threat of damaging wind and hail, and also a tornado warning with these storms is kind of a lot to go through. Comment from YouTube. I'm in Pinehurst right now. It's really coming down. I would believe so. You have Pinehurst down here. You're just south of the tornado warning. Lucky for you. Some of your neighbors to the north have the tornado warning again until 6:30. And Pinehurst, you're kind of just starting to get into this. The rain is going to pick up with intensity. And the winds, again, mostly severe to your north. But Pinehurst, yeah, you can see over Foxfire and Seven Lakes right now. You do have strong winds. And when we look at where the hail is, the hail threat does continue, but it has come down considerably from where it was over Mount Gilead a little bit earlier today within the past hour or so. Zooming out, just to take a look at the board, make sure we're not missing anything else. We do have a new severe thunderstorm warning in South Carolina. What was it, 30, 40 minutes ago? We were talking about the development of new storms closer to Sumter. You can see a thunderstorm over there now. So Sumter, Calhoun, Clarendon, and Richland counties, you have a severe thunderstorm warning for 60-mile-per-hour winds and penny-sized hail that goes for 52 minutes until the top of the 7 o'clock hour. Also, a cluster of storms closer to Georgia, some on the South Carolina side, specifically in Barnwell and Allendale. I expect for those to move off to the north and the east. So Statesboro, Georgia, but also, say Hilton Head and Ridgeland and Hampton. Watch for those storm threats later on today. Do note, though, those storms are south of the watch box. So if you're in Waltersboro and you're like, I don't have a watch, hey, tell that to the storms off to your west right now. I don't particularly care too much where the watch is. It's about a margin of error, if you will. But the main threat continues to be this cluster of storms right here that stretches all the way up from the combined I-40, I-85 corridor back south, south of the North Carolina Zoo in Asheboro, where things are calming down now. But we are watching this tornado warning that goes for another 20 minutes or so. We do have some of you watching from North Carolina right now. We do appreciate you watching with us. No additional information right now from the National Weather Service or local emergency officials where these particular storms are. As the Weather Service put it in their bulletin, it's mainly a rural area, and that's good news. That is certainly that's good news. That's not to say that nobody's out there, but more rural in some of the other areas we've been watching today, and that is about a silver lining, if you will. I also know a lot of you have been watching from the Wilmington area, storms that kind of rumbled through there, and your severe thunderstorm watch does go until 9 o'clock, so don't let your guards down for storms later on. But we were watching a flash flooding also in the Wilmington area, specifically in New Hanover County. Reports of multiple vehicles flooded near Murrayville. That just came into us from the National Weather Service there out of the Wilmington office. So kind of lots of different things happening all across the region right now. And on top of it, power outages continue to plague the region as an impact of these storms, which brought down trees and power lines. The power outages in the Charlotte area seem to be some of the highest, certainly where the concentration of the most number of customers and people probably are in terms of where the storms have been today. And so we're looking at almost 37,000 Duke Energy customers without power across that region, with a plethora of other outages across their service area right now. Matter of fact, Duke Energy is dealing with 1,200 power outages, nearly 54,000 customers without power in their service areas in North Carolina and South Carolina. And that just means that an address, essentially one home or one business at an address, is impacted. So when they say that there's 53,000 customers, that could be four people in one home is one customer. Oh, some of these comments, you guys watching vertically? Why do you have your face in the middle of the map? Are you guys watching on vertical? Yeah, so Vertical does some really weird things. Over on the widescreen 16:9 version of our stream, it's probably a much nicer experience. I won't lie. We've done the Vertical to reach as many people as we possibly can. But I had one or two comments asking me why my face was covering things up, and I'm mostly watching the TV version, and I'm like, it's really not. But I understand now. I understand. So yeah, we're working with our vendor with our streaming software to see if we can do a little bit better on the vertical side. But right now, it's kind of just is what it is. So apologies for that. But yeah, if you can stand it, go to our YouTube channel and find the widescreen version. Sorry about that. That explains some of those comments. I understand now. Charging my devices up in case the power goes out. Great idea. Great idea. Um, so we're watching a couple things. Again, this threat goes for another 3 hours or so. And here at the Carolina Weather Group, we are committed to trying to keep you informed about these storms around the clock, even when our crew, our all volunteer crew here at the Carolina Weather Group, might not be able to physically sit in the chair. So I've been talking with you for about 2 hours or so. I would love to do 2 hours more, but maybe in the background you can hear where my next duty is calling. And so, what we're going to do, if you're watching with me right now on our Carolina Weather Group YouTube channel, you're going to automatically be taken over to our Carolina Weather Net, which will keep you informed around the clock, 24 hours a day with live radar, alerts, sky cams. If you're watching with me on Facebook or X or Twitch or someplace else, I hope you'll head on over to whatever device it is you watch YouTube on, search for the Carolina Weather Group. Live storm coverage will continue there on the Carolina Weather Net. We'll see you as often as we can for live storm updates. And of course, each and every week at 9 p.m. Eastern for live storm coverage. Unfortunately, this is the end of the road for me tonight. I apologize for leaving you with some polygons on the board, but you guys have about another 3 hours or so. And I guarantee you, our Carolina Weather Net, you'll be in good hands. So for now, from Charlotte, I'm James Brierton. Thanks for talking and being with me tonight. Stay safe out there, and I will talk to you again real soon.